This movie was funnier than I thought it was going to be.
I didn't find it funny in the slightest.
Not even any tiny moment.
Some of the language, but like I watch it with like this feeling of dread.
Yeah.
Like I'm continually on edge because I've, not to say that I've hung out with people specifically like this, but I've met people who are kind of like this, where you're kind of always on edge around them because you've no idea what they're going to do. They're very unpredictable.
He's pretty funny. There's parts that I found amusing, not even necessarily that had Thewlis in it.
Yeah. I mean, the bit where, no, I can't say that because that's not funny.
Oh, dear. Well, hello there. Welcome to On the Beat, the podcast that uncovers full frontal male nudity in cinema. My name is Laura, and I am joined by my co-host, Ryan.
Did you think Nostradamus predicted that we'd be here at this exact moment doing this exact film?
Yes, a prophet.
All right, that was an answer.
Well, I'm excited to do this film because the last few films that we've covered have been
Nice.
Well,
hold on. We can't.
They have niceties within them. They're not bleak. This is quite bleak.
Yeah, the film we're covering's kind of, I wouldn't say it's as relentless as, say, like Bad Lieutenant, because I think Bad Lieutenant is made with like quite a level of like malice behind it. This one has at least kind of like it's malice, but with like a light-hearted touch.
Malice with a bit of brevity sprinkled on top.
Kinda.
Every now and again.
But we do get to cover one of my favorite filmmakers as well today, which is nice. That doesn't happen often.
Oh, I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true either. I love it when we like, I'm always the one who pushes for these films, so you know.
Well, the film that Ryan pushed for is 1993's Naked, the black comedy drama, which is hilarious because you, Ryan, would never say that this is any bit of a comedy, but I disagree. But that's because I also have to personally find comedy in trauma.
I think you can definitely find aspects of this film funny. Certainly the characters and the way they talk and things. Not the way that I'm kind of describing there, but like the language and the use of the language, and obviously kind of how these characters are situated, like the way that they go about their daily lives, you can find to be quite amusing because they're relatable. It's a Mike Leigh thing. Like a lot of this is all kind of solidified in a lot of reality and truth. So.
Yeah.
That's why.
So this film stars David Thewlis, Lesley Sharp, Katrin Cartlidge, and Gregg Cruttwell, and directed by Mike Leigh.
Yes, Mike Leigh.
Oh, I'm excited. He makes me nervous.
Who, Mike Leigh?
Yeah.
Why? Why does he make you nervous? What, the man or his movies?
Maybe the dissection and kind of overall going over and talking about his films. I don't know if I'm up to the task, but luckily I have you here to help me be smart.
Because the minute you said, oh, I'm nervous about Mike Leigh, it's like you met him in an alleyway and he was holding a knife.
That has not happened.
Okay, good.
I don't think he's that type of man. He seems like a nice boy.
No, I met him at the film festival in 2007. This was the Edinburgh International Film Festival. He was doing a kind of Q&A over there. That was the same year I met Steven Soderbergh, and I had a conversation with a Japanese filmmaker completely in Japanese, and I don't speak any Japanese.
Was it more of a one-sided conversation?
Very much, but I think he thought that I understood what he was saying. We were like having a cigarette moment, and then we kind of just like passing in the night, ships passing in the night.
Adorable.
We kind of just, I just kind of nodded and waved, and that was it. I don't know his name.
Maybe if there's a day when you two meet again, your Duolingo streak will come in handy.
Potentially, yes. I might be able to say please, hello, and maybe ask for water.
How do you say water in Japanese?
Mizu.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So the synopsis pulled from Letterboxd is An unemployed Brit vents his rage on unsuspecting strangers as he embarks on a nocturnal London odyssey. I love that synopsis.
Yeah.
It's one of the best ones I've read on this podcast. It is one sentence because I kind of started to write my own. He's just a guy pressing his anger amongst every single person that comes across his path.
It's like, yeah, his lifetime angst and I guess like his turmoil. He just feels the need to share it.
His conspiracy theories, his anxieties, his hate.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna get into like a lot of because this is like probably a career best for Thewlis. Like, honestly.
Ooh.
And you can't count Harry Potter.
I wouldn't count Harry Potter as being one of his best roles. It's quite popular.
I know you were going to bring it up.
I am going to bring... I'm not...
What's his name in the Harry Potter movies?
You're going to ruin my joke. Shut up. You're going to ruin my joke if you make me say it now. Don't. I have it written down. Stop it. Hold on. The tagline for this film, which I want to get out there before you do, Mike Leigh, is... When unbalance leads to submission. Yeah,
I've been thinking about that tagline for a little bit, trying to like figure it out.
Yeah.
Because it's quite enigmatic, which is fine, I think.
I'll take the synopsis over the tagline.
Yeah, no, I think you really, it's the tagline's not drawing you into the film. Because like the official poster, like the poster of it is like, it's obviously David Thewlis' character Johnny, and it's like seen between the legs of the character that we finally meet as Sophie, and she's got those fishnet stockings on and stuff. I don't know if that's kind of like a little bit of a misrepresentation about like what this film is. Like,
also,
from
that didn't happen.
No, that never happened in the film.
Because it's actually the character of Jeremy that interacts with those fishnet stockings.
Yes. So I feel like it was a piece of in inverted commas, clever marketing on the behalf of the marketing team.
Also, the title of the film mixed with the poster makes you go, ooh, sexy.
I mean, I did like, because we listened to the commentary for the film as well, I did like when Thewlis was like, he wanted to call the film Ape Shit. But that was quickly dropped, he said.
This film is not sexy.
Nope.
Not even for a moment.
Not one part
of it. No matter how hard you try to get a boner, it just doesn't come up.
No.
Nary a boner to be found.
No. They talk about their boners in the movie. But we come across some incredibly unsavory characters. Let's not talk about unsavory characters just yet, because we're going to talk about...
one savory character, which is Mike Leigh, right?
I love Mike Leigh. He's a lovely, lovely man.
So savory, so sweet.
Yeah, very smart, very humorous individual. So we're talking about Mike Leigh today. He is an OBE, and... I wrote this down, FRSL. I have no idea what that means, but it means he's got a knighthood and also a fellowship. So he's one of the front runners for giving the ring back to Mordor.
Hell
if
yeah.
they ever have to. But he's a director, screenwriter, producer, actor, and as you might have already guessed, he's gained numerous accolades and awards, and I'm not going to bore you with all of those.
Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature.
Yes.
Sorry, go on.
His contributions to theater, acting, film, I would say are quite considerable. He started as an actor. He trained as an actor. He got a scholarship to RADA. I've never known what RADA stood for. I thought it was like the Royal
Academy of Drama.
Dance. Isn't it like the Royal Academy of Dance and Acting or something, or Dramatic Arts? You know what it is? It's probably the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Yes, it is.
But he got a scholarship. He went to RADA. He left RADA because he didn't agree with their ideals. And again, I can't bore you with that kind of chapter of his life. But he went to London. He saw John Cassavetes' Shadows. So this is something that me and him kind of relate to a little bit. Shadows from 1959, and if anyone's familiar with that movie, it's the wholly improvised John Cassavetes classic. that's kind of seen as like the hallmark of American independent cinema. But Mike Leigh has worked in TV. He goes to work at the BBC. He makes, in the 1970s, about 9 TV plays, one of which is Abigail's Party. And I would tell you to go find the version with that stars Alison Steadman. That is a fantastic piece of either cinema / TV play, theatre. It's fantastic. I genuinely recommend watching that. I watched that in university, and it's a real treat, that one. But particularly that version. I would say go watch that version. He's also married to Alison Steadman as well.
Aww.
And she's in a bunch of movies and stuff like that, but people will remember her more from Gwen and Stacy as she's the mum. She's the mum character.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And she's very good in that. She's maybe the standout part in that entire series, to be honest. So we kind of can't talk about Mike Leigh without kind of talking about, I guess, the style of Mike Leigh. It's very particular. It's very specific. And I want to truncate this section a little bit as well, because this will make, I guess, what we cover in the film a little bit more understandable, I suppose. But quoting Mike Leigh, as to like his style, he says that he makes stylistic films indeed, but style does not become a substitute for truth and reality. It's an integral, organic part of the whole thing. So his process, which I find very interesting, is that he comes to a bunch of actors with a bunch of ideas, and then over the course of several weeks, even months, they improvise and they develop the characters effectively on the spot, giving a lot of the rein to the actors to develop their characters, develop their backstories, and just basically figure out exactly these characters' journeys and then how that's going to all kind of come together when obviously they go to film it. So effectively, they have this very kind of undisciplined kind of pre-production process that then is kind of whittled down and it's refined and it's distilled to then what is effectively what gets shot and what gets blocked out and all that sort of thing.
It's very complicated and interesting and a really fascinating way to do that. It's not everyone would want to do that.
It's almost the polar. I think I brought up William Friedkin earlier today. He's kind of like the polar opposite to this, where he's like, he doesn't bother with backstory. He doesn't bother with like trying to figure out like what the character was doing before this scene happens. He's very much a kind of like one take wonder. And for him, that works. And he's made plenty of films that way. But then this is obviously a slightly more involved process. And I don't want to kind of read massive screeds of stuff from Wikipedia, but this is kind of the best distillation that I can find on the process. But basically, he starts with some ideas and how he thinks things might develop, but does not reveal all of his intentions to the cast, who gradually discover their fates and act out their responses. Initial preparations in private with Leigh, and then the actors are introduced to each other in the order that their characters would have met in their lives. Intimate moments are explored that will not even be referred to the final film to build insight and understanding of the history, character, and personal motivation. So for the most part, what you found, and we found with like the commentary and stuff like that, is that the actors themselves have very specific reasons for why they're doing things, but that's not intrinsically shown in the course of the film. And for most parts, they don't feel a need for that to even be explained in the films either. So you will find kind of like with his films is that they follow a kind of... like Naked itself, I find to be a little bit meandering, but that's just by the virtue of this beast that's being created. You know, where we're kind of following a character who drifts around for the most part, and there's obviously secular characters that are obviously kind of part of this bigger understanding of this story. But yeah, I kind of feel like, you know, there's a very kind of improvisational nature about these films, but I always feel like every time I watch them, they're incredibly refined and they feel very tight when they're kind of put together. But we'll talk about some of Mike Leigh's actual filmography, and then we can move on to Naked. So his first film starts in Bleak Moments in 1971, followed by Meantime in 1983, High Hopes in 1988, Life is Sweet in 1990. Naked comes out in 1993, followed by Secrets and Lies, 1996, which is easily my favorite of his films.
It is great.
I love that movie. What are these secrets and lies?
Oh, yeah. When he dropped that titular line, I almost threw up.
Timothy Spall.
What a treasure.
What an absolute treasure. Career Girls in 97, Topsy Turvy in 1999, All or Nothing in 2002, Vera Drake 2004, which is also a very good movie.
True.
Happy Go Lucky in 2008, Another Year 2010, Mr. Turner in 2014, and Peterloo in 2018.
Wow.
So one of my understandings, he's heavily influenced by like Ozu and Fellini and stuff, and it's all about kind of a realism and a truth. And I think like Mike Leigh's a very interesting kind of director to kind of cover on this podcast because we talk a lot about truth. But for him, like his initial ideas for Naked, or at least kind of my understanding of his initial ideas for Naked, was that he really just wanted to make a film about someone who was inherently vile.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of where the germination of Naked kind of comes from, basically.
Yeah. It's interesting that he wanted to create a film about someone who's vile, and then you have your main character who is, but not to his core. I don't think he's completely like beyond being able to be redeemed. You know, I think he has a chance to potentially be redeemed, as opposed to the Jeremy character, who is just
a sociopath,
a masochist.
He's on a crash course, basically.
Yeah,
I think I do like every single one of the characters in this film, and it is kind of on that basis, like this kind of debauched. Like, I love characters that are super fucked up, you know.
Yeah.
That are, you know, in this case, like relatively quite scary and intimidating. But the thing is like, it's like Mike Leigh plants the seed, and then the actors kind of grow from that seed, that idea.
Yeah.
So I guess like going into this, because the film's heavily criticized for, you know, for misogyny and the way it treats its female characters and stuff like that. But the characters were created by the actors in the film.
I don't think the men are treated particularly well either. No one is treated well.
I feel like there's certainly a perspective on it. And I mean, an audience reaction, a critic's reaction can be very different from the ideas, because being close to the piece as well, you know, Mike Leigh and certainly the actors involved in it, they're not going to be looking at how externally it's going to be reacted to. Like, they're kind of very much working within the moment. So, you know, I understand where some of that criticism comes from, but I myself, I don't really see it. I kind of feel like the story is what it is, and it goes in that direction for very particular reasons. So
I just don't see either why that would be such a big deal.
No.
Oh, why can't you have a movie that's a little bit misogynistic? I don't understand the problem with that.
I feel like also for this, I almost feel like as well that you're putting present ideals or present, I guess, like understandings onto something that was made at least 20-something, 30 almost years ago at this point. I think that, yeah, there's certainly a certain sect of the mainstream where it's like it's saccharine sweet and it's sugary and it's there to kind of just appeal to everybody.
Well, that's not what this is.
No.
This is probably the most rapey film we've done.
Yes.
So far. And not that I try to stay away from those things, but I don't love them. I used to tell you, if, you know, you're watching something on streaming, it'll tell you, oh, this is rated R or mature for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And if it says rape, I'm like, nah, I'm not into this. But for whatever reason, this film, and I'm not going to say it doesn't bother me, like rape doesn't bother me, of course, but there's something about it that just doesn't hit you as rough as some other films maybe do, for me personally.
Yeah.
I know we'll
It's maybe because like there's certain elements of it that you find amusing.
There
so
are
I feel
moments
like
I find amusing.
and like you genuinely do find them amusing, and they are amusing. The issue I have is that, you know, you can say it's a dark comedy, and I think there's some weird and peculiar. I would even use the word quirky, because certainly a lot of like these characters have kind of weird, quirky traits. Even though like kind of deep down, you kind of really boil it down. Like these are some really dark, messed up people who are kind of on like a track to almost like a self destruction. And certainly
I'd say everyone in this film that are your kind of main four characters,
yeah,
everyone except for Louise.
Yeah, there's a real burden of loneliness that kind of latches on to kind of each of these characters as well. But the thing is like, yeah, you can say that, you know, there's rape in it, and that's not to say that like we don't watch stuff with those sorts of ideas. It's just not like preferred viewing.
Yeah, if we're gonna sit down on a Tuesday evening, I'm not going to be like, put on the rapiest film you have.
Yay, let's just watch Irreversible for like the 20th time. It's just not, if you can watch something that isn't like that, there's a time and a place for that. And I guess like, because we're looking at this from an examination point of view, I would also agree with you that it's not super gratuitous, but there's an ickiness about it. Yes. This is very dirty. It's very grey. I think it's shot particularly well. There's a lot of screenshotable things in it. It feels like it's been shot with like a bleach bypass. Dick Pope, who shoots all of Mike Leigh's stuff.
One of the two famous popes.
Yeah, I mixed them up with Bill Pope, and Bill Pope is the other pope. There's two popes. My two popes. So Dick Pope is the more, I would say, I was gonna say classical, but like he's the Brit.
Older.
Yeah, he's the older. He's the Brit. He's out there shooting stuff. He's worked in TV. He's like, you know, he does other things with Mike Leigh and stuff like that. And there's not really anything of real other note that I feel like Dick Pope has done. And that's not to say that, you know, he's not, but Bill Pope obviously he shot like fucking Quantumania, The Matrix, Bound. He worked with the Wachowskis. He did the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, the second one and the third one.
Yeah.
So there's certainly there's a comparison there, but yeah, I mixed up that Pope with another Pope. So the film itself, like a lot of Mike Leigh's things, is that they feel very organic. So like the story, I always found that like with Naked anyway, because I hadn't really watched Naked that much, and Naked was one of my least watched Mike Leigh movies.
Because you said you weren't sure if you had actually seen it.
Yes.
What did you come up with? Had you seen it?
I had seen it and I'd kind of forgotten about it.
Because I saw it when I was maybe in high school or maybe just out of high school.
I always thought it was a lot more controversial than it is now. I'm maybe a little bit more desensitized now, but I remember seeing it at the time and going, this is like, not to say it's too close to home, but like I've dealt with fucked up people in my life and those sorts of apartments and like that sort of dressing and the way things are, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not really into this. I'm not into being reminded of all this fucked up stuff.
Well, the film at times and maybe throughout a lot of the film is pretty agonizing and very stressful to watch.
It feels like visceral.
Yeah.
And there's a way about it that makes it feel like it's like a collection of vignettes that are kind of tied together. Certainly when Thewlis goes on his quote unquote odyssey, it feels like little theatrical vignettes of like with the people that he meets and stuff.
So we've already mentioned that David Thewlis plays Johnny, who's just really loquacious, very verbose. He's incredibly harsh.
Yeah.
Very direct. Well,
confrontational, I would say.
Yeah, angry.
Yeah. He's intimidating.
He, to me, is like a disease that's walking around, infecting everyone, making everyone mad, stressing everybody out, and just tipping them over the edge.
I would say he's vile, but he's vile by his own design and his making.
Oh, of course.
Like he's a man of judgment, so he pontificates this, he pontificates that. He's a master pontificator. He'll quote a book or he'll be seen reading, or he'll be doing this.
Incredibly intelligent, but also just...
Well, his intelligence is... he uses his intelligence to kind of spite people with.
Of course.
You know? And I feel like that's just a way in which he kind of gets under people's skins, and he just kind of creates and develops, like, quite a level of, like, conflict and strife. But it's out of the sum and nothing. Like, there's nothing to gain from, like, what he's doing. But he's also like a drifter, and he's kind of going from place to place, and it's like, oh, I can't stay in Manchester anymore, and he feels like the world owes him something. And he walks with like he has a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah. I don't know if I believe that he's a drifter 100% of the time. You know, this is just 3 days of his life, and he has a house. He lives in Manchester. He has somewhere to live. He's not a homeless guy. But I think that from the beginning of the film, when it opens, he is on the run a bit. So
yeah, I do also feel like he's yearning for something that life just can't provide him with. And he's just not able to find it, because he's constantly going on about like how people are boring and life is boring and isn't this, and the monotony of like and the ennui of like, you know, everyday life and like how people are doing it, and he feels like he's better than everybody else, and he feels like he deserves something better, when in obviously actuality he's kind of, his mindset and the way that he's going through life is that he's just damaging everything and he's destroying everything that he touches.
Yeah.
But there's like an inherent kind of like charisma to him that means that like he's able to kind of float back and forth. So it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of weird. And he's certainly very good at weaseling his way and latching onto people. People
have said that this character is magnetic, and I would not agree.
No, not he's a leech.
Not for me.
Yeah, he's a leech.
He's
apparently like a parasitic individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, as you were saying, these actors make their characters, and they come up with this background of that maybe even the director doesn't necessarily know all of the little nuances of their characters that they've kind of come up with, but the background reading that David Thewlis did for his part, like he would read Voltaire and the teachings of the Buddha and the Bible and the Quran, and just try and like, those are the type of things that he was kind of pulling from to make his character what he was like.
Well, he's a genius, this geezer.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I feel like, yeah, he has a lot to say, but then it just doesn't have any substance to it.
Yeah, of course.
And there's odd little moments in the film where he'll say something, and I think it's like when he's interacting with Sophie, and I think this is one of the prime reasons why he doesn't really like Sophie, is that she's like, what's that shite? And it's like, well, no, that's something I came up with. You know? And it's like,
she's also too needy. It's very annoying.
Yeah. She's
very sad. She's the saddest character.
So
of the
sad.
Film.
Yeah, she has like no direction and almost like no purpose. And she's kind of just this frail creature who's just kind of looking, like she's just looking for something, and she does kind of latch on to him, even though he's aggressive, he's violent, you know, he takes the piss out of her, you know, and it's like she's just desperately trying to find something to latch onto to give her life a little bit of meaning.
So this was David Thewlis' second film with Mike Leigh. The first one he did was Life is Sweet, that you mentioned, from 1990. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering how old he was when they filmed it. And he was around 29.
Wow.
So, and this is Gregg Cruttwell's film debut.
Wow.
And he is so incredibly recognizable to me. And we were talking about, where is he from? Maybe he was in a lot of TV or something, but I think maybe it's from his character in the Brendan Fraser George of the Jungle.
Yeah, I thought I recognized him.
He's only been in 3 films.
Yeah, well, I thought I recognized him from a bunch of TV stuff, like TV drama, TV comedy things.
Maybe.
That's but probably a longer list.
But terrifying in this movie.
He is awful.
Yeah.
He is genuinely awful. And he's, he never answers the question of whether or not he's quite well off, but he's definitely well off.
He's
or
a
at
Porsche.
least he has a Porsche. He asks these, that question he asks to the masseuse, and she still goes out to dinner with him, where he's like, do you think women like being raped?
Yeah.
And it's like his second line in the entire film.
Really sets the
And
tone.
you're like, what the fuck? And then obviously,
I loved that scene. It was so telling, but also so beautifully shot. He's laying on this massage table, face up, and it's shot down by his legs. So he's got a towel kind of over his torso and his thighs, but it's just shot so you're kind of like looking in between his legs, but it's all dark.
Yeah,
it's so strange. Most of the shots of this man are of his butt or his junk with underwear on.
Yeah, he goes away wearing little black undies.
Like little tight, like lacy almost.
Like lacy, tighty.
I wonder if they were even
pants.
his. Or if they were hers.
They might,
actually.
Maybe they were.
They look like...
were.
But I don't know.
He just goes, you know what? That
gross.
adds another dimension to his character, certainly with some of the things that he does in the film.
It would be it would make so much sense for that character to wear like women's underwear.
He's, yeah. The best way to describe him, just because of some of the vile things that he does, and I say vile in the night, like he is a sociopath. Like he's a sadist. Like he's awful. He's fucking awful.
So you mentioned that Mike Leigh wanted to make this film about unacceptable male behavior, right?
Yeah.
So Mike Leigh said, like, this is why you have the character of Jeremy, who plays the landlord, ? It said, although you would call Johnny's behavior unacceptable, it comes out of frustration. The landlord is infinitely worse. His actions come from a very black place. And the actor, Gregg Cruttwell, said, I would go and do improvisations in the real world with Mike kind of following him around. He said he went into Selfridges as Jeremy and it ended up picking up a girl from the makeup counter. And then he went around the corner and Mike said, come out of character. Because that's like what they would do.
Yeah.
Like he'd be in character until Mike said, stop.
Yeah.
And he goes, we just had to leave her. Any improvisation would stop if it was going too far sexually or if it was going to get violent. Because there was other times that they mentioned where between Archie, played by Ewen Bremner, and Johnny, where some of the improvisations would get violent and they would fight and people would call the cops in the street.
Yeah, Ewen Bremner's fantastic in the film. And he's also, I've seen like 500 versions of this character in Scotland. Who are like
yelling in the streets,
off their fucking head, screaming somebody's name, probably their girlfriend. Like they're high, they're on fucking drugs, they're drunk, and they're just ready to go. They're just ready to square go at any moment's fucking notice. And it's obvious that what's Ewen Bremner's name in
Archie.
this? Archie, because then there's Maggie, and Maggie's obviously the reference to subtle reference to Thatcher. Maggie's played by Susan Fiddler, who's in Trainspotting. She's the one that has the baby. So she's very good in the film as well. Again, it's deeply sad when you meet her, but Ewen Bremner plays it like point fucking perfect.
Yeah.
And it's just, he's fucking terrifying. And there's hundreds of them running around in Scotland right now. It's such a... The film has a very particular look. It's very kind of bleached out. So it's got like a kind of bleach bypass look about the whole thing. So it kind of instills a real sense of like, just like dread. It's and
almost like monochromatic.
Yeah. It's just like on the fence of almost being black and white. Because if it was black and white, there'd be almost like a romantic nature about it. But because all of the colors just completely drained out of everything, it's just, it just feels like it's got it's just all the soul's been sucked out of it by these people.
Speaking of monochromatic, Gregg Cruttwell also said that, they'd spent so many weeks being really horrible to each other. And he said for one of the sessions, he'd be out in the street in a pair of black pants, black underwear. And it was right in the middle of winter. And he goes, this was before Dalston was full of hipsters. And the neighbors were all out of the window going, fuck off, get out of here in the streets. So
that's kind of a nice way of putting it. Because, it's probably not the first time they've maybe seen that sort of thing. But like with Jeremy's character, there's a couple of occasions, obviously. He is the main source of the, like, I guess, the depictions of very disgusting outward kind of acts of male
violence,
pomposity, and like privilege, basically. Because there's that one scene with when he's in they have the restaurant. Everything he says is fucking disgusting.
Yes.
But then at one point we cut to him in his apartment with Elizabeth Barrington, who was she was the waitress at the restaurant. So it wasn't even with the girl he was actually with, the masseuse, and takes her back. But like that scene just takes a turn.
Yeah, because he's rapey. He rapes everybody.
He rapes her.
He rapes every woman.
He bites her. He says that thing where he's just like, I'm going to commit suicide by 40. And he's just like, he's
making
just
me
on
run
this.
through my notes too fast. I'm going to commit suicide on my 40th birthday. I don't want to be old.
He's like...
That's funny. But it's funny. But also it's happening while he's about to rape this woman. So it's like... so conflicting.
I don't think it's funny.
You don't think that's funny?
No, I don't.
I thought it was very funny.
It's
such a random thing to say. You're on top of this woman who's screaming, and then you're saying like, I don't want to be old. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
That is something someone says when they've got nothing to lose.
He's insane.
Yeah, and he knows he can get away with it. And a lot of that, like, because, the rape, there's that rape.
Which one?
There's there's loads of rape. But he also, when he invites himself into the house, he rapes Sophie. And Sophie's under the understanding it's the landlord. It's like, oh, right, well, here we go. That took a lot longer to come about. It started off with... It's disgusting from start to finish.
This guy's kind of interesting, and... Let's see where this goes. And then he starts immediately being violent. She's like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
And then it just gets worse from there.
Just gets worse and worse and worse, basically.
So this film starts with what the audience is understanding is that it starts with rape right off the bat. The title screen hasn't even come up. So you're in a dark alley with who you understand to eventually be Johnny.
Yeah.
Is raping this woman. And I think... from what I can understand from the filmmaker's perspective is that it's meant to be like ambiguous. Like this started off consensual, but it can obviously, the moment there's a no, the moment that there's, that's rape. That's full on rape. You can't say it's ambiguous when the woman is screaming. So that's why he has to leave, and that's why he ends up going to London and going on this journey, right?
Yeah.
So it's rough, like from start to finish with that kind of thing. But
it doesn't really let up, and it does kind of come to a crescendo at the end, where it's like it just gets to its darkest, blackest place, its most nightmarish place.
We're not going in order like I thought we were, because I was saving my Harry Potter reference, which is in the beginning of the movie when he meets Sophie.
Okay.
But I was going to mention, just because I wrote it down, that the house that they film in, that Louise and Sophie and Sandra live in, is this like Victorian kind of neo-Gothic structured house.
Yeah.
But that was a real location, so they were able to shoot the externals, the exteriors, the interiors, like, all in the same place.
Yeah.
So it gave it a really, realistic feeling and very claustrophobic.
Yeah.
At times.
Yeah, big time.
But it did make me laugh in the beginning when Johnny's speaking to Sophie and they're having a bit of a flirt.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I used to be a werewolf, but I'm all right now. And I'm like, You played a werewolf in Harry Potter. Sorry, that's just funny to me.
I've heard that line from family members
That really?
all the way through my life. Yeah. Used to be a werewolf, but I'm all right. No. Yeah, see?
Jeez.
Yeah, because when I heard it, I just went, ugh. Yeah, I've heard that 100 times. If you watch Naked for anything, watch it for the dialogue and the delivery. The dialogue and the way that it's delivered, the way that it's put together, it's second to none, honestly.
It's agonizing.
Yeah.
To me. It's agonizing. Every word that comes out of his mouth, I roll my eyes. I find him despicable. I find him just so irritating.
Yeah.
I have no sympathy. It's kind of in the beginning of the movie, so do you mind if we jump into that penis scene?
Yes.
Hooray! So this comes in at 17 minutes and about 10 seconds. So this is after Johnny shows up at Louise's house, who is his ex-girlfriend from Manchester.
Yeah.
And
this is the reason why he's in London anyways. He got a postcard from her to say that this was where she was living now. Because they lived together in Manchester at one point.
They dated for a year, right?
Yeah, they dated for about a year, and then she left, kept in contact with him, and I don't think she ever at any point thought she was ever going to see him again.
Yeah. Well, because from what we've seen, their relationship, obviously, they have a deep, deep, deep background and a deeper connection. But from what we've seen, when you're starting off at the beginning of the film with Johnny and he is involved in a rape, done a rape, and then he goes to see this woman and she looks horrified when she sees him for the first time.
Terrifying.
And then you have her roommate who's, a bit... She's not simple or anything, but she's troubled, incredibly troubled, and she's flirting with this guy.
Yeah,
and they're having a power struggle between these two women.
Sophie's also jobless. She's on the dole. She's drinking in the middle of the day.
Yeah, she's having a hard time.
She's probably not having the best of times. But she's...
You got this dude who's paying attention to her, that doesn't stop talking, who seems incredibly intelligent, and she, as a self-destructive person, at least in the moment, is like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
This piece of ass just walked into my house.
Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah. The thing is like Johnny and Louise's relationship, certainly from this initial meeting, is it's incredibly passive aggressive. So
but that's also I think that's also their...
That's probably I think that's just the way they've been with each other. It's
that's
kind
your
of
northern
like
humor, very dry.
Very dry, yeah. Very, very dry.
So, well, as you could probably tell from watching the film, when you have Sophie and Johnny flirting quite a bit, it ends up getting not sexy, but sex happens.
Sex does happen. Yes, they end up having sex immediately. Starts in the lounge, gets them up the stairs, which I thought was kind of weird because they have sex on the couch. Then the next shot is them going up the stairs and they're wearing their trousers. Did you not wonder that?
I didn't notice.
Right. Unless he did it out his fly. But
he does do that, though. Later on in the film, he does that, too.
Yeah, he does a little bit of a semi-rape, I guess. He does
that's a difficult one.
He does like an aggressive sex thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was an interesting bit of commentary from the actor from that point, kind of describing how it's more... It's hard to even describe because it's less about the violence than the reward. It's like any type of attention she can get is positive for her. So even if it's negative attention, like violence, there's still some sort of reward in it for her, which is like just difficult. It's a difficult thing.
Yeah.
But that's not where we're at now. It's just casual and question mark fun. I don't know.
I guess
it is sex.
It's kind of like means to an end. It's like they've started, so they'll finish. Like that's kind of what it looks like.
He doesn't seem. He seems incredibly disconnected, and just like it means nothing to him. None of this means anything to him.
And this scene, like as they're having sex, is intercut with Louise in her bedroom. Who's kind of forlorn, I guess. There's a lot more there's a lot more kind of hidden, secret kind of characterization going under the under the surface with Louise's character, I find. Because certainly she comes to some decisions, and her story is a lot brighter. Because I feel like she's a little stronger.
Yeah.
Than a lot of the other female characters in the film. But yeah, I think we see her in her bedroom, and then it's like the aftermath of the sex, so to speak.
Of the Sophie Johnny sex, yeah.
Yeah, and Sophie's lying down, and
he's just sitting there, looking kind of off into the distance.
Yeah.
Blank face. And that's when he gets up, and he did not put his pants back on.
No, he's completely naked.
Walks kind of towards the camera and just passes it. And kind of mid-torso.
You see everything. It's a little bit dark.
It's a little bit dark, but that thing walks right towards the camera.
Oh, it's right in the camera.
Right.
And I did wonder,
looking
like, where is he going? Like, where is he trying to do? But then obviously,
maybe he just had to pee.
Well, I think the next scene is that he doesn't go to sleep. At no point do we ever see Johnny go to sleep.
Once.
Like, he is just
at the end. At the very end, after
he gets the shit kicked out of him. Yeah,
twice,
I guess.
yeah.
I felt like, well, yeah, I think that
he
was
doesn't wake up.
He doesn't wake up.
Well, I mean,
no.
he does eventually, but he didn't die.
Yeah, he didn't die. But no, what we mean is, like, it took someone kicking the shit out of him twice to make him go to bed.
That was 3 days.
3 days.
3 nights of no sleep.
Yeah, because I feel like he just gets up and he goes downstairs and he reads that book. And then Louise sees him in the morning. But yeah, no, that scene is, that scene is interesting. Like because it's very truthful. It's very realistic, you know.
Which part? The sex scene or
this shot of him walking?
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of feel like I'm like, huh, yeah. Like I got a kind of deep respect for that moment because, yeah, you're spoiled by it with, you know, obviously with the sex and stuff, and obviously there's a level of gratuity to it as well where you're kind of just like, I don't want to see you anymore. And that one moment at least feels innocent enough, you know.
Yeah, she's just sleeping and he just kind of leaves her there to be alone.
Because you would expect, because of obviously the nature of it, like maybe Jeremy at a later point, you probably see a little bit more of you know, what was going on there, but you're kind of thankful by the end that you don't really because of how far that character kind of just takes his I mean he has that one line, and it's like when everything kind of, and obviously there's another character that we're not really kind of going into, Sandra, who's mentioned quite an awful lot. She's like a mystery, but she's kind of off in Zimbabwe. I don't know, she's a nurse.
She's just hanging out with her
helping
boyfriend,
people, but like the one in one of the lines that was Jeremy goes, I hope I haven't given you AIDS, Sophie, and everyone's just like, Jesus Christ.
And he's like, it's just a jest. Just a jest. I screamed.
Funny.
I screamed when he said that.
I was like,
you gotta be kidding me.
Fucking hell.
As if it wasn't bad enough. His tiny little pants, his tiny little butt.
But the thing that gets him out of the house, like the thing that gets Jeremy out of the house, is the fact that Louise stands up to him and says, I'll cut your dick off, pretty much.
Yeah.
And calls it maggot dick.
I wonder, there's a lot to break down, but I did think maybe that was just something in the character, like the character building of Jeremy, why he's not naked, because he seems incredibly comfortable with his body. Yeah. He walks around, you know, as soon as he walks in basically to Louise and Sophie's place, he's only in his underwear.
Yeah.
And is completely comfortable there, walks around, and it's terrifying.
Well, we know he goes.
Terrifying.
Yeah, we know he looks after himself. He goes to the gym and he gets massages and stuff like that.
He's a very slight man, but he's so menacing, and he's very, very scary. But it makes me think, because there's a moment where I believe the first time that Louise sees him, she comes in the door and he's walking down the stairs, and all you can see is his junk basically at eye level with her, and you don't really see the rest of his body. And I thought at that moment, how menacing would it have been? Or would it have been funny? I'm not sure. if he was completely naked.
But that's the thing is, like, Louise and Sophie have no idea who the fuck this guy is.
Yeah.
When Sandra returns, she has had a dalliance with this guy who's not just calling himself Jeremy, but also calling himself Sebastian, which is also kind of super fucked up.
Yes.
And she's looking at his wallet and being like, who's this guy? Who's this guy? The thing is like a lot of Jeremy's actions, and I know he's not like the focus point of the film, but like he is fascinating by the level of cruelty that like he inflicts on the people in his life.
Yes.
But yeah, it just feels like it just comes from his place of like his privilege, and I think it just oozes like that level of privilege because he just walks out of the place. He gets in his Porsche and he just drives away. There's no level of consequence to any of his actions as well.
No. I did wonder about his motivations. There's so much that's alluded to, which is a testament to their deep, deep character building. But you have these two male characters, your main two boys. You've got Johnny and Jeremy. Each person, other than Sophie and Louise, seem to kind of flow in and out of Johnny's life, right? Every interaction he has are by people kind of passing through him. Mm-hmm. Whereas you have Jeremy who barges into people's lives and doesn't leave. So he inserts himself into every single person's life to cause misery. So it's an interesting kind of difference between the two male characters.
It's a really interesting juxtaposition, like a dynamic that's kind of alive and thriving in the film as well. But I do think like the reason why, because each of the characters is enigmatic, which almost immediately to me makes them far more interesting. So much more interesting when you're just like, what the fuck has gotten you into this position in your life? And that to me, I just think is like it's just like the crux of interest within a Mike Leigh movie, honestly.
I found the moments where Johnny was speaking with that security guard.
Yeah,
His name was Brian.
Yeah, poor Brian.
Oh, the sweetest, like one of the sweetest characters ever.
And then again, another character who's just like plagued by crippling loneliness.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just interesting when their whole dialogue, it's kind of talking about like the pressures and the paranoia of like the upcoming 21st century, right? Like 1999 coming up, doom and gloom, the end of the world,
Y2K.
Stuff like that. I remember that. And this is only 1993.
Yeah.
So...
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of references to the quatrains and Nostradamus and stuff like that. You know, and yeah, I mean, the thing is, or at least like this is just the kind of thing about Nostradamus. Like some of his stuff happened, or at least some of his stuff happened within the framework of what he was. Like he was that time's Mystic Meg, and anyone who understands that reference, I applaud you. But obviously you have to be careful about certain quatrains because they've been rewritten. Like I remember seeing some for like the Twin Towers when they fell. Like people had rewritten quatrains to feel like this could have been predicted when quite obviously it wasn't. So
jeez.
Yeah.
Internet.
Do you like the internet? The internet.
I don't know.
Yeah. The internet.
Anymore.
It's
the internet.
Yeah. It's like it's full of Jeremys.
Too many Jeremys.
Too many Jeremys.
Mike Leigh had said, he goes, I was starting to anticipate the millennium. It was obvious it was going to be a big deal, but I didn't know how to treat the subject. I could have made a science fiction film, but I realized the character of Johnny, a frustrated idealist drifter who's hacked off with the world, would be a very interesting vehicle for millennial preoccupations.
Yeah.
So cute.
It's good, yeah. It's kind of like, yeah, I like the idea that like these are things that are like floating around in like these people's heads, because like something very directly like that, like a science fiction film about, you know, Y2K and things like that. We have had things like that that have existed. Just don't seem as interesting as some of the things that are depicted here. So
yeah. There are so many beautiful shots in this film. One of my favorites, probably my favorite, is when you have Johnny and Maggie, like when he finds Maggie after Archie kind of is running away trying to find her, right?
It's probably the signifying shot of the entire film.
It's it's this amazing tracking shot, and it's so weirdly dynamic because it's just set a kind of in front of this like really dilapidated background that was a real location, and there's so much happening, but for the first time, like one of the very few times where Johnny isn't talking.
They flood in smoke and stuff. It looks very atmospheric. It's
very
so theatrical. Cool. Yeah, it's very theatrical in the way it's blocked as well.
Yeah, it's one of the few times where Johnny isn't speaking. You know, one of the other ones I remember is after he had sex with Sophie.
Yeah.
Just the one time he shuts up. Because most of the time, even if he's not speaking to somebody, he's talking to himself.
Those moments, like, speak so much louder than when he's, like, procrastinating and, like, pontificating stuff, like, into the ether that no one's really picking up. Like, it's completely lost on everybody when he starts to talk. But, like, these moments weigh so much heavier on the character development when you see them. That means I think that they have a lot more impact when they do come along. So, you know, because like we look at like what he's influenced by and things, and he's been likened a lot by, you know, to like Yasujiro Ozu and, you know, Federico Fellini and stuff. So he's got a very kind of classical filmmaker sensibility that's then transposed to a very Northern English setting, which I think is incredibly fascinating. Kind of like a Shane Meadows as well. I think he's another good like comparison to that, where it's like classical filmmaking, but it's set in kind of like a modern day, relatable kind of English setting as well, which I think it's very. It's just intriguing. It's just a very interesting plug of ideas kind of being forced out there.
I had read that a biographer named Sheridan Morley described Johnny's character as Alfie in the grips of Thatcherite depression.
Perfect.
I liked
really
that.
Good.
I was like,
yeah,
geez.
I love that.
A lot of people, like critics as well, have kind of likened his character to like a fucked up Michael Caine character.
I mean, the most popular review on Letterboxd for the film called this the Joker, but for British folk.
I hate it. I hate that that's the top review.
It's
like if someone is looking to watch that film and they see that as the top review,
it's a gross misunderstanding of it. No, you wouldn't want to watch it.
To be fair, I do like the Joker. I want to say I did like that film.
We did like the Joker, but the thing is like we liked the Joker in the distillation of time that we watched it in the cinema for. I don't think I'll ever really watch it again. I'm not really that fucking interested, and they're doing a sequel and everything. But at the same,
looks like it'll be interesting.
Well, we'll go see it. But like, what I mean is like, it's only going to be interesting for its runtime. I don't see myself ever thinking about it afterwards. But like, yeah, I look at that review, and I force myself not to say anything or write a comment about it. But it feels like it's also liked by like 1,800 people
Can someone make a better review? Can we make a better one, and then everyone likes it, so that just bumps it down?
Just because something's popular, I don't think it doesn't mean it's correct. I feel like it's a gross misunderstanding of what the film Naked is actually trying to be. And
it's like some of the reviews for Saltburn. One of them was, sometimes you got to bottom your way to the top. That's funny. Bump that up. Hilarious.
Yeah, that is funny.
The Joker one, does not work.
The review for Naked,
it's like they've never seen this
agree
film.
with. Yeah, it's like you've seen one and then you've taken an idea and you felt like you've ran with it. I think you think it's funnier than it actually is, even though it's kind of grossly incorrect.
Yeah.
But good for you, I guess.
I wish that my review of Ferrari would get more likes. You guys should find it on there and like it. It's hilarious.
I wish my reviews would get more likes as well, because they tend to be funny.
They tend to be.
They tend to be funny.
So this film, in terms of accolades, actually did not win the Palme d'Or overall, but it won the Palme d'Or for Best Actor and Best Director.
Well, he won the Palme d'Or for Secrets and Lies, I think.
Okay, makes sense.
Like the year, like the film after this.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think? Are you ready to get down and dirty and naked with our ratings?
I just wanted to double check that Secrets and Lies actually won the Palme d'Or. I'm pretty sure I'm correct.
Well, then while you look, I will give you my ratings. How about that? So
Secrets and Lies won the Palme d'Or in 96.
You're faster. I was breathing. Okay. Good for you. Fast fingers. So in terms of visibility and context, the more films we do, I feel like the harder it is for me to come up with numbers. I had written down a 4, and then we watched it again with a commentary, and I'm like, it's a 5. And now I'm going to sit on a 4.5 just because of how dark it is. But in terms of context and in terms of the film, overall, the film's called Naked. So, I mean, that would annoy me just
you would hope.
On the basis of the title.
Would hope.
Well, I'll settle on a 4.5 just in terms of how dark it is, but it gets screen time and it gets our attention.
Yeah.
But it's also just a really like truthful and kind of not pure. It's not a pure moment, but it is
Visceral.
A truthful moment in terms of his character and his, I don't know. Not even his relationship with Sophie. Like he doesn't seem to have relationships with anybody except for Louise.
I don't think. Yeah, I feel like that was the closest he's had to any sort of emotional like binding to someone.
Do you think that her leaving Manchester was a breaking point for him and he didn't even know? Because he went to find her, like maybe he just started falling apart when she left because he didn't have anyone that really knew him. Pretty much.
I mean, to like. From our understanding of what happened to him within the film, like, because everything else would be speculation. Yeah, probably that was like his breaking point. Like that was his sudden descent. Was that? You know?
He's had nothing to lose because he's lost it all already.
Pretty much.
And for the film, 4.5. I was going to give it a 5, but then it's not for me, but it's really close.
Yeah,
it is. It's not as hard to watch as other films that I've seen. It is watchable because David Thewlis is so incredible and so dynamic and really, really takes hold of that character. So he's really very fascinating to watch and following him around. And the guy who plays Jeremy is very terrifying. But yeah, 4.5.
So I go lower with the scene itself. I give it a 4 because it is really dark. It's super dark. But it gets a little bit higher just in terms of its context and things, and that just, with the level of truth and the reality of it. And I like moments like this that come across as relatively quite truthful. There's very few instances where I'll give a 5-star for the scene in its context and stuff like that. And this kind of falls a little short because of how dark it is. But then if I think about like truth and reality, and then you're like, well, how is the light setting? And, why is it like this? Why is it like that? It's kind of just like, yeah, maybe that's just the way it is. But then it's also, this is a film. The light can be put in a certain way. So like, why are we seeing it as dark as it is? Like, why is it lit this way? So yeah, I kind of, I kind of balance it out that way. So I mean, I think it's good. I think it's a good enough moment. I think it's a very revelatory moment as well, because certainly it's quite early on in the film and we're only kind of really starting to understand who the Johnny character is as well. I feel like it's very
think of your word.
It's not revealing, but it's candid. So, I feel like it's a kind of candid moment in trying to figure out the kind of the intricacies of this guy. As for the film, I gave it 4.5 as well. I deeply enjoyed it, but when it starts to get a little bit farcical towards the end, I feel like the tone kind of changes a little bit, and I don't have a massive problem with it. I think it's the minute Sandra turns up.
It's absolutely that moment.
Yeah, I'm like, huh. Like I've got nothing wrong with films being relentlessly dark and they just take you to a sad place. I'm like perfectly okay with that. I kind of feel like maybe that's what I wanted more out of Naked than what we're given at the end of the film. I have no issue with her turning up because suddenly she's kind of like this brighter kind of comedic presence that's in the house from all this horrible dark shit that we have. But then I feel like it also detracts from the fact that, like, a rape has taken place in this house.
Yeah.
With these people. And these people are inherently very fucking sad. And then this woman's also entering this house as well. And I'm like, I feel like the resolution I was looking for in the film doesn't come because of the way that final moment in the film is presented. Thewlis leaving the house and walking down the road, I have absolutely zero issue with that. And, like, taking the money, like, I have zero issue with that. It's just that
he took the money.
there. He took the money.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, he took the money.
Good for him.
So that's the only issue I have with the film. That's why I dock it off a 0.5 star, because I'll watch Mike Leigh's stuff till the end of fucking time. Like, he has got a stellar fucking filmography.
That is true.
But yeah, it only gets 4.5 just purely because of that one moment I just don't think fits particularly well.
I like it.
I think it's fine. It's for me. I want it to feel relentless.
I think it only gets 4.5 from me because it could have been shorter.
It's a little long.
Because you could have taken out one of the interactions, you know,
it's
with
2 hours,
one of the characters.
Minutes, yeah.
Like, because Johnny meets so many people, you could have maybe cut out like one.
Yeah.
Or merged them together.
Or,
you know?
or trim them down a little bit. His Odyssey, because certainly Homer's Odyssey is also mentioned in the film as well, because he meets the cafe girl. That's Gina McKee.
She's great,
and she has books, although it's not her books. It seems to be that, like, these people are living in other people's abodes that they've paid for. Like, that's what you kind of find, and these are like lodgers. Who these people are kind of there, and they're
all just roommates. But that makes sense for London and for this age group of people.
It does, but it's weird that, like, everybody that we meet who's on that kind of level, because certainly Gina McKee's also kind of very much a person who's, like, bridled by a heavy amount of loneliness and, you know, and sadness about her as well.
Well, that's how he attaches to people. He knows who to latch onto, because some people accept it and accept his bullshit and some people don't.
I do like when he meets Sandra, and Sandra's just like, why do you feel the need to take the piss?
She's the only person that doesn't take his shit. Like, do you like me? She's like, I don't know you.
But the thing is like, Sandra is actually very smart. She's a nurse. Like, Johnny pretends to be smart by spouting facts, which is, well, that's the thing. Like, that's also a kind of, you know, the visage of, like, the modern man as it is now. You know, this whole idea of, like, gaslighting and people saying they're far more intelligent. Like, you don't understand this because of blah blah blah. Like, he is very much like the model of the modern man that we see today in this slightly more digital age.
I really hope that that's not true. And maybe he is just the idea of a shit person and not modern man. Please don't say it's modern man.
I use the modern man in inverted commas, though, because that, you know, that you have your Elon Musks, your fucking Donald Trumps, your Andrew Tates.
I don't want these trash people talked about on our podcast.
They are role models for a certain type of person.
Yeah, well.
So there are people who are perceived to be intelligent when really they are saying nothing of any substance. That's what I'm saying. And I don't think that's not untrue. They're not role models for the likes of me, but they're certainly role models for other people out there.
Gross. So, that being said, I want to tell everyone, don't waste your life. I wonder if anyone has ever eaten smoked salmon after having sex, and also a line from the film. And if we've got nothing else, I surely don't. You good?
I think so. Yeah, I was like looking at my thing. Yeah, no, I think I'm good. I think I said everything that I wanted to say.
I got my last 2 things in there, so.
There's so many quotable lines in it as well, but yeah, we don't need to. I did like it when Sophie's talking about like rockets looking like big metal pricks, and that they just also want to go fuck space as well. I was like, all right, okay. But yeah, that's me.
Well, coming to you from the Jubilee Cafe, which is the only place that had a name in this film. Really?
Yeah. And like London is hell, seemingly.
Yeah.
So it kind of is. I'm not going to lie. I worked there once. It's not great.
Yeah.
It's always on fire. Like that's the only thing I'll say. It's always on fire. Everyone's always angry.
Yeah. One of the last times I stayed there, my house still caught on fire, actually.
Yeah. So,
well,
yeah.
That being said, I've been Laura.
I've been Ryan.
Hope you've enjoyed this dark film, and we will see you.
I've been Everyday Modern Male.
Oh.